Today, things are getting spicy as we give our 2024 bold predictions, and I'm going to tell you why, even though he lost Keenan Allen, even though he lost Mike Williams, even though he lost Austin Eckler, I think that Justin Herbert is in store for his best season yet.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. And everyone, we're getting so close, we can taste it, but thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and make sure that you never miss the show. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, as you mentioned, a couple of his major weapons from the last few seasons did walk out the door, but he got a huge upgrade at head coach, and I think that is going to make a massive difference in Justin Herbert having the best year of his NFL career up to this point. Also, I think that the Chargers on defense are going to go crazy, especially in the sack department. I think there's a very good chance that they will lead the league in sacks this season. And for me, since we're going bold, I'm going to say Darius Davis is going to get 3 return touchdowns this season. Let's go.
Man, I don't know. That one is pretty bold. It hasn't been done in a long time, but I don't know if anyone is going bolder than FTR on today's show with his voicemail. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. David, when I was thinking about my bold prediction for today's show, it's hard because there's so much unknown with this team right now. It's a totally new regime. Totally kind of unclear what the expectation should be for a team that had the overhaul that this team had, with Justin Herbert losing, right, the 4 of his 5 leading receivers from the last 2 seasons, with Gerald Everett gone, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, even though, especially in Mike Williams' case, some of those guys in and out of the lineup, Keenan Allen as well. But with Jim Harbaugh in town now, with the new philosophy that this team is bringing about having a well-rounded offense, being able to support Justin Herbert without having to make him go Superman mode, I absolutely think that he is going to have the best season of his career. I think that you saw during this last week that he practiced when they had the last week of training camp, where he's having the best practice he's ever had, that he is in full command of this offense. And I think it's important to know what constitutes as the best season, right? 2021 is his best statistical season. It's also the most interceptions he's thrown, but he threw for over 5,000 yards and all of these things. I don't think he's going to hit that. But I also don't think, like many do, that his stats are just going to fall off a cliff. I'm not in the camp of Jim Harbaugh is going to let Greg Roman, as if Greg Roman would want to, not use Justin Herbert to the fullest extent and let him be the main piece of this offense and the main thing that makes this offense go. At the same time, though, I do think that Justin Herbert is going to have the best offensive line of his career. I think he's going to have not, as proven of skill position players, but I also think he's going to have the fastest offense that he's ever played with. I think he's going to have the best running game that he's ever had. And I think he's going to have easily, by 1,000 miles, the best coach that he's ever had. Not just that, but a coach that has consistently elevated the play of the quarterbacks that he's coached. That is why, David, for me, it might not be 5,000 yards, but it might be the best touchdown interception ratio, the most rushing yards he's ever had, the best yards per attempt, the best EPA. You brought up, best completion percentage. I think all those things are on the table for Justin Herbert in 2024, and I think people are absolutely sleeping on that right now.
Just imagine, guys, Justin Herbert put up the stats that he's put up throughout his career with pretty much no running game. That's going to change this season. The Chargers are going to have a consistent and effective running game because they have an offensive coordinator that has authored top 10 rushing attacks at every single stop as an offensive coordinator. So that's going to happen. And what is that going to do? That's going to open up the throwing windows for Justin Herbert, where we know he can already fit it through a needle. He can thread the needle pretty much anywhere on the football field. But now, with the coming on of the running game, you're going to open up those passing windows to be a lot bigger. And that's going to have a huge impact where I feel like the completion percentage is going to go up. The turnovers are going to stay down like they always are. He is historically great at protecting the football, but I think you're going to have some more explosive plays because the play action is going to be really, really effective. The defense is going to have to pay attention to that run and the pass this year, which is going to make Justin Herbert that much more dangerous.
I also just think the Chargers have a ton more depth, right?
Yeah,
I don't think, because even though he had these great skill position players, these great weapons, like the last time he really had those two top receivers consistently was 2021 when he had his best season.
Yeah.
Then you have, guys like Michael Bandy on the team. Like, right, he just, the drop off was so substantial that it was always hard to imagine he was going to be able to replicate or at least continue the level of play that he had when he didn't have those guys. So I think all of those things, Justin Herbert, obviously just getting better every year, going into year 5, knowing what he knows. And also, this is a major kind of if at this point, but I'm assuming that he's going to stay healthy. This is assuming that he's going to stay healthy. And if he can do that, it would be the first time since 2021 that he could go through a season healthy. He says he's fully healed from the foot injury. I believe him. Last year, it was broken fingers on both hands. The year before that, it's fractured rib cartilage. If he can stay away from that, I just don't see how he doesn't have, by his standards, his best season, even if it's not necessarily the gaudy stats that people would think of when they think, okay, what does a best season look like?
And more wins too, Daniel. I think that's another part of it, is especially when we're talking about quarterbacks, they don't get the respect that they deserve around the league unless they win football games. And I think having a better coach that knows how to put games away, that knows how to win, quite frankly, is going to help Justin Herbert in his image and how he is seen around the league, because I think there's a lot of people that have been disrespecting Justin Herbert because of the lack of wins. And I think when you bring in an established winning head coach, that's going to help change the perception of Justin Herbert to reminding everyone how damn good he really is.
Right, and people who watch him every weekend don't need the, reminder of it. But I just think we're really in store for something special from number 10 this year. But we do have Athir who's calling in. If it's bold, Athir is going to have his thoughts. So let's hear the boldest take that's going to be on today's show right here.
Dan, David, this is your baby Athir. My bold prediction for the year: Joshua Palmer and Ladd McConkey will be top 5 wide receiver in the NFL in yards and in touchdowns. That will lead to Justin Herbert winning his first MVP. Let's go, FTR, baby.
FTR, baby, all the way. Athir, I knew you were going to go bold. I mean, that's so bold that I wanted to buy it. There's no way I can buy that. That's just, it's crazy. And I think the big thing, the most important thing here is what it means to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Not, also talking about the fact that Greg Roman has barely had 1,000-yard receivers on the teams that he's been the offensive coordinator for. But the fifth best receiver last year in the league, receiving yards wise, was A.J. Brown, who had 1,456 yards. Right? That's nuts. The guy who had the 5th most receptions was Michael Pittman with 109. I don't think either of those guys are putting up either of those stat lines, let alone both of them being in the top 5. Justin Herbert, MVP, I think he could get one with Jim Harbaugh because I think wins are such a big part of it, and I just don't think he's going to get enough wins to earn the recognition. But I would say, hey, Justin Herbert, top 5 in MVP voting. That's a bold prediction. Sign me up for that. Ladd McConkey finishing top 3 in receptions, top 5 in receiving yards amongst rookies. Sign me up for that right now. I can get that bold. I can't go all the way with 2 top 5 receivers, as much as I'd love to. You're muted.
There's a bold prediction that I'm not going to mute myself this season. 1,456 receiving yards, like you said, top 5. The person who led that stat line was Tyreek Hill at almost 1,800 receiving yards. So we got to keep that in mind when we're talking about bold predictions.
There's a lot of great receivers.
A lot, just a ton. And also guys that are going to get featured. And with this offense, I think Justin Herbert's going to spread the ball around a little bit. And I don't think there's going to be any one receiver that's going to dominate to that effect to be able to put themselves in that type of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfair to even ask. The Chargers, I think from the outside looking in, have a bottom 3rd wide receiver unit to most. Can they outperform that? Sure.
Absolutely.
Do they need a lot of things to go right for that to happen? Do they need a lot of health to be on their side? Yeah, I think that the Chargers wide receiver core is underrated. Do I think they're top 10? Do I think they're top 15? I probably wouldn't go that far, but I think that Justin Herbert elevates those around him, which is why I think that that's going to be built into him having his best season yet. But that's just the start of the hot takes that we have coming today, because we have more bold predictions, including why I think both of us might be buying the Chargers could lead the NFL in sacks this year, and also David's bold prediction for 2024 and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I know you guys have heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but right now they have something a little bit different for you, because right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And with the football weekend starting this weekend, I can't think of many better things to have than NFL Sunday Ticket, because that is what every football fiend needs in their life. But for this weekend, I know we've been talking a lot about the Padres. I've been winning you guys tons of money on the Padres, but it's football season, baby. We can bet on football this week. So this weekend, I love the Chargers versus the Raiders for this Sunday's game. I love the Chargers to cover the 3-point spread. I think it'll be more than that. I think it'll be convincing. And this is the one I love the most. Gus Edwards, anytime touchdown score at plus 240. I think he's the goal line back. Take that one to the bank and just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, David, well, let's continue getting into our bold predictions, and we put this out in a post at LockedOnLAC on Twitter to combine the buy or sell and the bold predictions into one show today, because we know you guys love the buy or sell. So we're going to be getting into some fan buy or sells to see which of these bold takes we're getting behind. And it starts with, it can't get much more bold than the top in the league, David, which brings us to Lad McConkey season, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers will lead the league in sacks. Are you buying it or selling it?
Yeah, so when we talk about leading the league in sacks, last year the Baltimore Ravens led the league in sacks with 60 sacks last year. So that's a big, big number. The Chargers actually got 48 sacks, which, you know, that's only with 9 games of Joey Bosa and a down kind of production year from Derwin James in that department as well. I mean, honestly, the Chargers only got 6.5 sacks from their linebackers as well. And I think both of those numbers from the defensive backs and from the linebackers are going to increase. And hopefully we get more health out of Joey Bosa, but they also added to the edge room by bringing in Bud Dupree, which is some excellent injury insurance just in case somebody goes down in that room, with Tuli Tuipulotu also waiting in the wings going into his sophomore season. So I think that there is a very real chance that the Chargers will lead the league, and that's why I am going to buy it. I am going to put my money where my mouth is. I think they will lead the league in sacks. Also, Jesse Minter loves to utilize that slot blitz. We saw it already in the preseason. I think he's going to use that to great effectiveness, which is going to inflate some of those sack numbers from the perimeter defenders as well.
Absolutely. I think what makes this so tough for me is just the interior of the defensive line room, because if you think about who led that team with the Ravens in sacks, because I think the crazy thing about them leading the league in sacks is if I ask you off the top of your head who the best edge rusher is on the Ravens, it'd be very hard for you to come up with. It would, right? Yeah. And you're talking about a team with the Chargers who have Justin or Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack out there, right? One of the best duos in the entire league. At defensive tackle, though, it's a lot harder because they had Justin Matabike, who led them with sacks, with 14 sacks last year playing defensive tackle, and got absolutely paid. But I liked what you said about getting contributions from everyone, because I think the most important thing from that Ravens stat line, at least what they did last season, was they had 9 players that had at least 2 sacks. They had 7 players that had at least 3 sacks, and 3 players with 9+ sacks, including Kyle Van Noy, because that's who their leading edge rushers were Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy. If Mike McDonald can do that with those edge rushers, right, but obviously a much better interior pass rusher than the Chargers have.
Sure.
I absolutely think that Jesse Minter can create something similar. I'm going to buy it. I mean, I think we saw it during the preseason, the kind of pressure that this team can create and what that led to. I think the other thing, too, is just you're obviously running a very similar defense to what Mike McDonald was running with the Ravens, because they, both kind of ran the same defense at Michigan, and Jesse Minter ended up taking over for him at Michigan and actually improved upon what they were able to do. So I've said before, I think that the DBs and linebackers will have 15+ sacks just in that unit and those units. So that's why I'm going to buy it. I think this is a bold prediction I could get behind. It's going to be very tough to do, but I buy that this team can get it done. Let's get to another one. I think that's kind of in a similar vein and goes hand in hand in this. And this from Drew Bannon, who says, buy or sell. The Chargers defense will rank top 5 in takeaways this season. As always, bolt up from your favorite military fan. Thank you, Drew. We appreciate you and thank you for your service. David, are you buying or selling top 5 in the NFL in takeaways? Not number 1, but top 5 would still be incredibly impressive.
It would be. And I think, obviously considering what happened last year, top 5 would be 26 or more turnovers. And the Chargers actually were only a few away from that. They hit 21 last year. And in a defense that was very disjointed and very disconnected that allowed a ton of explosive plays. But I think the reason why I think that the Chargers are going to be top 5 in that department is because they have practiced ways to turn the football over. They have practiced the tip drill. They have got their hands on more footballs, at least reportedly in the offseason and in camp and in practice. And hey, they turned over Trey Lance like 5 times, 5 interceptions. So, and that was with most of their backups playing. So I just feel like the way that they've been teaching turnovers is going to bear fruit, which I think is going to lead them to that direction of being top 5 in that turnover margin.
Right. When it's important too, because turnovers can be taken multiple ways, right? We're obviously talking about takeaways, right? How many times do you take the ball away as opposed to turning it over offensively? But yeah, last year it was actually the Ravens who had 31 takeaways who led the NFL. Chargers did have 21, but of course they actually gave the ball away 21 times. So their turnover differential was exactly 0. They couldn't really, they did it as much as they were able to give it away offensively. But this is the thing for me. It's hard because the Chargers don't have a ton of ball hawks, right? There's no one on this team that's ever had more than 4 interceptions in a season, 3 interceptions in a single season. But I think it is kind of a communal thing. Like, I think it is a totally team thing. And I think if you look at a couple things that would kind of give you an idea of what they could do, I think you look at that Rams joint practice where they turned them over 5 times. I think you look at what they did to the Cowboys in that final preseason game, even though it's Trey Lance. Like, he didn't have an interception until that game and threw 5. And that
made him look bad.
Made him look really, really bad. I think the other thing here is the forced fumbles aspect of it. And Joey Bosa somehow didn't lead the league a couple years. I 100% thought he did. It was actually Shaq Barrett who had 8 strip sacks in 2021, whereas Joey Bosa had 7 and was most in the AFC that year. But also, Khalil Mack's had 6 in the season too, and Khalil Mack also has the most strips of any active edge rusher in the entire NFL. So those are 2 guys who can not only cause pressure that forces turnovers, but also can take the ball away themselves as far as ripping the ball out and doing it like that. You do have playmakers. Derwin James is a playmaker. Alohi Gilman's a playmaker.
Yeah,
I think Christian Fulton is going to be a big-time playmaker, and we're going to talk about him tomorrow when we talk about some breakout candidates. I think it can happen. I'm going to buy it. I think top 5 with this, especially because both of these, right? The Ravens led both of these categories in the NFL last year. I think you're
coincidence? I think not.
That Jesse Minter in this defense can bring some of that. And I think if the preseason showed us anything, even when he was playing with lesser players, even when he was going with more vanilla type of looks, they were able to consistently get pressure, cause turnovers, cause tip balls. And I think that they can get top 5 in 2024, obviously. But David, you have a bold prediction, and I'm excited to hear your argument why you think that Darius Davis could be kind of borderline historic in 2024.
Yeah, so my bold prediction is that Darius Davis will get 3 return touchdowns this season. Now, before I said this, okay, I did not really truly understand how really bold this was, okay? Because the last person had 4 punt return touchdowns in a season was Patrick Peterson in 2011, and Josh Cribbs had 3 kick return touchdowns back in 2009, which was 15 years ago. So this is extremely bold. But the reason why I feel like that's possible is Darius Davis is a special talent. I love the way that he's able to see the field in front of him. He has the afterburners, and he also has the mad scientist as a special teams coach to be able to put him in the right positions. So pairing Ryan Ficken with Darius Davis and his real vision and speed, that's why I feel like he could do something historic this year.
I love Darius Davis. I mean, to be an all-pro as a rookie, I think shows you he was the best return man in college football the year that he left. I mean, he has, I think, 6 or 7 career college return touchdowns, which is nuts. I'm selling it just because it's so rare. I mean, let's not forget, though. He should have had 2 last year. Well, I think it was Stone Smart with an illegal block on a punter that ended up costing him one. The punter had no chance. He should have had 2 punt return touchdowns. Even that would have been super rare. Nobody's had 2 punt return touchdowns since 2019, right? No one has had 3 total return touchdowns since Tyreek Hill did it in 2016, right? When you're combining punt returns and kick returns. I also would love to know for sure that it's going to be Darius Davis that's taking all those kick returns, right? That's something we didn't really see. It makes sense for them not to use him in the preseason, but I'd like to see who they think is best fit for that. I mean, obviously, I think he would have to get the first crack, and I think with that, if I was playing devil's advocate against myself, I would say, hey, there's going to be a lot of touchdowns, I believe, on kick returns this year, most that we've seen in a long time with the new rules, and I don't think every special teams coordinator is going to be fully prepared for that and what the differences are in that. I think Ryan Ficken will be, but I think he's the exception to the rule, right? So I love Darius Davis. If you would have said 2, I think I could get on board, especially after seeing he should have done it last year. 3 is bold for a reason. I'm selling it, but I mean, with Darius Davis, I want to believe it for sure. But we still have more to get into, including why David is buying a very, very bold prediction that the Chargers could go 5-1 in the AFC West, and their only loss will be to the Chiefs. We're going to get into that and a couple of Raiders game bold predictions and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to talk to you guys about Game Time, because guess what? The Chargers are opening up against the Raiders this weekend, and you can be there. And to make sure that you get the best prices, there's only one place to go, and that is the Game Time, because Game Time gives you the Game Time guarantee, guaranteeing that you're going to get the best prices for the tickets for this gigantic game and the first game in the era of Jim Harbaugh Chargers football. And the other thing that Game Time has, which makes it great and something that you could use for this team, is they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They also have all-in pricing, which you can toggle, so there's no surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and get your tickets for this Sunday's game against the Raiders, where Jim Harbaugh is about to put a beat down on them, boys. And you can download, all you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I also need to tell you guys that today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is one thing that is super important that I think a lot of adults get away from, and I definitely have, and it's the growth, right? Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. What's something that you'd like to learn? Gardening, a new language, maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era can come at any age. I know I have a friend who is in therapy just like I am, but he also just decided that he's going to go back to school and try to do more. And I know, David, you stayed in school and stuck with it, and it's hard to not get focused on everything else. You have a kid, right? It's important to keep growing, and having a therapy and BetterHelp specifically can help you with those things. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient and flexible for your schedule. Also can save you some gas money for sure, because you don't even have to leave your house. And you can rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. All right, David, we still have many more bold predictions to get into for this 2024 season, but I have a bold prediction I can make happen for you, and that's that you won't finish last in your fantasy football league if you follow the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast, because I don't want to see you going viral, having to be a sad clown going to a Chargers game, or even worse, maybe you have a Raiders friend in your fantasy football league and you have to wear a Raiders jersey to a game if you get last place. That'd probably be the worst punishment that there is. I can guarantee you that's not going to happen if you go watch the Locked On Fantasy Football show on YouTube and follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. David, let's continue getting into these spicy takes, including one that we have here that I think is pretty spicy from Chris D91 on Twitter, who says, buy or sell, the LA Chargers have a division record of 5-1, and that only loss is against the Chiefs. Are you buying or selling that?
Well, I've already said this. I said this earlier.
You're sticking with it, though, right? I mean, that was earlier, right? You could have changed your mind for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could have changed my mind, but I didn't change my mind. I think that the Chargers absolutely can, and they will go 5-1. The reason why I'm so convicted in that is the Broncos have a rookie quarterback. They are rebuilding. They don't have a lot of weapons on the offensive side, so that offense does not really scare me very much. And the Raiders are pretty much in the same boat. They have a journeyman quarterback that they're throwing out there in Gardner Minshew, and they have Devontae Adams and a couple of tight ends. That's really all I'm concerned about there. Not a lot going on there. I think the Chargers are better than both of those football teams, depth-wise, coaching-wise. I think that they stack up a lot better. I feel like they're going to sweep both of those teams, and they're going to split with the Chiefs. I think they're going to beat the Chiefs at home and lose at Arrowhead, because Arrowhead is just really, really hard place to play.
Yeah, it's very bold. I mean, even what you're saying right now for them, like it seems on paper, yeah, hey, the Broncos might be a little down, the Raiders might be a little down. We've seen bad teams from both of those teams in the past. It's not like the Broncos have had a long list of great quarterbacks since Peyton Manning left, right? It's not like the Raiders have had much there going on. Derek Carr and his mascara has never scared me before. It will never scare me now. Doesn't scare me in the game against the Saints later this year.
Nope.
This is the thing. If it was 4-2, I could buy it. The reason I'm selling it is just you need so many things to happen that just haven't happened in so long, and I think maybe I just have to have it proven to me, because the Chargers haven't won in Denver since 2018.
I get it.
Right? They haven't swept the Broncos since 2010. That's 15 years ago,
Way
right?
too long.
I know the Raiders have been bad. When do you think the last time they swept the Raiders was? Not as recently as you think. It was 2018. They haven't done that in 6 years, and the Raiders have been a bad football team, right?
Yeah.
I could get on board with splitting with the Chiefs. I didn't pick it to happen, but I absolutely could see this Chargers team taking the Chiefs down in one of those two matchups. They just have always slipped up, right? And I'm hoping that changes. 4-2, I could get behind. 5-1, still a little too bold for me at this point, but I don't blame you for going there at all, Chris or David, for making that prediction. But we still have more to get into, including a voicemail here that I think we all can get behind. You know, FTR.
This is Tommy O from Chicago Bold Pride, and my prediction is Lad McConkey makes the first touchdown of the game, and our defense makes a pick six to end the game. Let's go, Bold Pride.
Bold Pride for sure. FTR.
Bold Pride, baby. Let's go.
For sure. And I think this is bold because it's Lad McConkey, right? Not a prototypical red zone threat. But, David, I mean, you can't have it be much more kind of symbolic or just a better feeling for the Chargers to end the game with a pick six. I mean, both those things individually I could see happening. I'd probably sell Lad McConkey first touchdown score. You know, maybe if you had Gus Edwards, I could get behind it. It's bold for that reason. Are you buying or selling it?
Yeah, honestly, I'm right where you're at. I'm going to sell it because I expect it to be Gus Edwards. I think they're going to run the ball, especially in the red zone. I think they are going to try to smash it in, and I would not be surprised if they do it first, second, third down, trying to punch it into the end zone. That's just kind of what I expect to see. And I'm also going to sell the ending it with a pick six part because I don't think it's going to be that close. I don't expect it to be that close. I'm not going to say that a pick six is going to be the difference in ending the football game.
Sure.
So I'm selling it because I think there's going to be a larger margin of victory.
Yeah, I mean, you can get, you know, if you would think that Lad McConkey is going to score the first touchdown, you can get that currently on FanDuel at plus 1,000 for Lad McConkey. So if you're feeling that bold prediction, you can definitely make it worth your while.
That's bold.
I'll sell it. I love it. Maybe this next one, which is pretty close to equally as bold. And as far as I could look back in the Chargers record books, I couldn't find a game in which it happened. And this is from Adam Perkins, who emailed me this. He said, big fan of the show, buy or sell. We will see a touchdown from all three units against the Raiders. FTR, bolt up. So that's a special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown, and an offensive touchdown against the Raiders. I mean, if you wanted payback for that 63-21 game, I can't think of many better ways you could do it than literally dominating them in every phase.
I would absolutely love to see that, but my goodness, that's such an anomaly. I mean, that's just impossible for me to sit here and co-sign, unfortunately. I will say that I do think that they will get a touchdown on offense and defense. I think that special teams part of it is just something that has to be a situation where everything goes perfectly. Like every block's got to be made. Darius Davis has to hit the hole properly. Like just everything has to go so smoothly and so right. I'm going to go offense and defense. I'm going to sell the special teams part of it.
Yeah, I could buy 2 out of 3, right? Even if we didn't just make it offense and defense the way it has to happen. If you're telling me, hey, they get 2 out of 3 of those, as a bold prediction, I could definitely get behind that. Doing all 3, if any fan out there can go that far into the database to find out if the Chargers have ever had that. I mean, it feels like there might have been one at one point, but Man, that's tough. A pick six, a scoop and score, plus a return touchdown, plus an offensive touchdown, which I think everyone can get on board with. I have to sell it, but I love how bold it is, and that's exactly what we wanted to do today, getting bold for this 2024 season. But I have a bold take for tomorrow's show, and that is that Josh Palmer is going to be a breakout star for the Chargers in 2024 and be wide receiver one for this team. When we get into all of our breakout candidates for the 2024 season and also get into some of the expectations that we have for Joe Alt, for Ladd McConkey, for Junior Colson, and the rest of the Chargers rookies. So make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for that, and to make sure that you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find the show every day on our social media. Thank you to everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC and gave us your questions on Twitter. You can also hit me and David up on Twitter, me at Dan Talk Sports and David at Dro Talk SD. You can also hit us up on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, where we post the show every day as well, and on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. David, we always appreciate the everydayers. Thank you to everyone who checked out today's show and contributed to today's show, even calling into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. We are so excited for this season, and it's going to be packed the rest of the week. We have the breakout candidates tomorrow. We have crossover Thursday, the inaugural crossover Thursday on a rivalry week on Thursday. And then we're putting our money where our mouths are, getting into what the Chargers have to do to win this first game in convincing fashion on Friday. So make sure you guys are back here for that. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.